guys, this is Joelle from FromScratchFarmstead.com, and we are in the middle of apple season. Now, the common way of making applesauce, right, is to peel your apples, to core your apples, to cook them, to blend them, and to make your sauce. But actually, by doing that, you are losing a ton of valuable nutrients, and there is even a simpler way to make your applesauce. So I'm going to share the best method to make homemade applesauce with you. So we totally had one of those apple core slicer peeler things. You know those things you stick your apple on and you peel it, and they're really, really fun, and everyone has a good time using them. And I think those are like the most common homestead apple coring, peeling device out there, and for good reason. They're really fun, they're handy, they work well, they're awesome. But the thing about them is they peel your apples, and actually when you consider the nutrition of apples, and this is actually true for most fruits and vegetables, the majority of the nutrition and the nutrients in an apple is actually in the skin. And so by peeling the apples and losing the skin, you're losing all of the phytochemicals and the antioxidants. So these are the valuable things that are going to be your cancer protecting, cancer fighting nutrients, also your cardiovascular protecting nutrients, and also most of your vitamins and minerals are in the skin. And so by peeling off the skin, you're actually losing so many of the nutrients, and there's actually very little nutrition in the flesh of the apple. And so whenever I'm making something, I go to pretty great lengths to make sure I'm using the skin of whatever it is that I'm cooking. And so that's where it's really important to make sure you're shopping for and purchasing organic produce. And so when you're making applesauce, I always make sure to try to talk to the farmer that I'm buying the apples from. Or we recently planted a ton of apples in our yard, apple trees in our yard that we will not be spraying at all, because you want to make sure that the apples and the skin of the apples that you're eating are full of nutrients, right, and not chemicals. And so knowing the sourcing of where your food comes from, where your apples comes from, is really important. To make this applesauce, it's so simple. All you're gonna do is you're gonna cut and you're gonna core the apple. So I like to just cut it into chunks, right? Like they don't need to be small. I usually just cut it into 4 chunks like this. And then I'm going to throw them in my slow cooker, actually. You can also do this in an Instant Pot. I've done it several times in an Instant Pot, which is actually way faster if you are in a pinch and in a hurry. The reason I prefer to do it in a slow cooker is because if I do it in an Instant Pot, you need to add that cup of water to the bottom. So I add the cup of water to my Instant Pot, put in the, the little grady thing that you put the apples on top of, and then put my apples on, but it usually ends up, you get some of that water from the bottom in your final sauce. So it just makes for a little bit of a thinner sauce at the end versus using the crock pot. It does take longer in the crock pot for sure, but all I put in the crock pot is my straight up apples without any water or really any extra things besides some salt and some cinnamon. And so the choice is yours, which way you go. And I'll link below to a blog post that gives full instructions for either Instant Pot or crock pot. But my favorite method is to use a crock pot. So we are not peeling our apples. We are keeping all those valuable nutrients in the skin on there. All we're doing is slicing our apples into quarters, putting them in our crock pot. And then once our crock pot is totally full of apples, we're just gonna cook it, right? We're gonna cook it on either low for 6 to 8 hours, or you could cook it on high for 3 to 4 hours until your apples are nice and soft, the juices are flowing out of them, and they just are a nice kind of mushed up cooked apple. And then from there, you're gonna wanna blend your apples. And so you could just do this with an immersion blender, and I think this is the big reason why people take the skins off of their apples, right, is for texture, because you don't want that gritty apple peel texture in your applesauce. And so I have found with an immersion blender, it's hard to get the peels to be totally kind of gone. You still kind of taste that grittiness a little bit, but you can totally do that. And a lot of people, I know my mom does that and she totally doesn't mind at all. But if that bothers you, another way to do, and this is what we love to do, is actually put those cooked apples in either a high powered blender like a Vitamix, or a food processor, something that's really gonna blend them and make it so that your applesauce then is just really smooth, really creamy, and you cannot taste the texture of those apple peels at all. And so that's it, you guys. That's all you need to do to make this applesauce is you're gonna cut it, you're gonna slice them up, you're gonna cook the apples, skin on, blend them up, and then from there, it's ready to go. And then in terms of adding extra stuff to applesauce, I see a lot of people add extra sugar or sweetener. We have not found this to be necessary at all. I think the apples themselves, especially if you're getting, you know, a sweeter cooking apple and not a super, super tart one, are plenty sweet in themselves. And so we just do straight up cored apple slices with some salt, some cinnamon, and that's it. That's all that's in our applesauce. Blend it up, and then from there you can preserve it however you like to. We always can a ton of applesauce to have on hand for the rest of the year. So that's how you're gonna make your easy, no peel, super nutritious applesauce.